Hello and welcome to Islanders Anxiety from Lighthouse Hockey and the Fans First Sports Network. My name is Dan Saracini. Joining me, as always, on this Sunday evening via Zencaster is my good friend Michael Leboff. And Mike, the Islanders in their first full week under Patrick Waugh, still looking for consistency, still looking for some wins. It's been a rough one. We're going to talk about their place in the standings here at the All-Star break. There have been incremental positive things to be seen under Waugh, particularly their shot totals, but so far his sort of structure has yet to really take hold, which makes sense. I mean, he's only been around for a couple of days. Where are you at one full week into the Patrick Waugh experience for the Islanders?
It's taken every bit of me to kind of remind myself that you need to take a big picture view right now.
Yeah, I agree.
Because I think it is a little bit of a transitional few weeks, and even going to end up probably being a transitional season for the Islanders, and that's hard to deal with when you've been clamoring for this team to avoid rebuilding and just keep going for it and keep trying to win with this core, like I have. And but when you take a step back and think, okay, like the Islanders are in a much better place right now in terms of the big picture. If you want me to use a corporate buzzword here, I'll say the macro view of the Islanders compared to the micro view, and the macro view has improved exponentially with one fell swoop. And yeah, but the micro is what's really important, right? Like, because we want them to win, we want them to make the playoffs this season, and I still think that they can absolutely do that. And it's absolutely astonishing to think that the Islanders are basically in the same exact spot that they were at last year's All-Star break, and almost the same exact. You'd have to, I guess, maybe stretch it a little bit to go back to. I don't know. Was there even an All-Star break during the their first season at UBS Arena? I can't
I don't
remember
think so.
if there was even an All-Star game because there was still, a lot of pandemic stuff going on. But I don't. I feel like the past couple seasons now, like the Islanders have been kind of in this spot where you can still see the playoff cut line. It's in it's not like off on the horizon. It's still relatively close enough, and there's enough runway where the Islanders can make a push and make the playoffs. But the circuitous route that we've taken to get here is astonishing, because we took an incredibly strange route to get to this spot last year too. There was the crazy losing streak where the Islanders just couldn't score more than one goal a game. Nobody was scoring for them. This was obviously pre Bo Horvat, and they had injuries all last year with Pelech and coming in and out of lineup, and just to get to this exact same spot where they're in the playoff race, but they are third or fourth in line outside of the wild card spot. So to get to that exact same spot, which I thought it'd be almost impossible to have almost a repeat of such a specific season.
Yeah.
But the Islanders have done that. Obviously, the difference here is that Patrick Waugh situation, which is the story of the season for the Islanders. But it's crazy that we are here in the exact same kind of predicament that we were last year, and even the year before. Like you can create a formula to find your way into the playoffs if you're the Islanders, or you can just listen to everybody and say that the season's over. And I tend to believe in the former, because I'll do anything to keep a season alive. I remember when 2010 or 11, the Islanders were about 8 points out in like March at the trade deadline. I was like, maybe they should be buyers and just go for it here and try to get something going and and I remember just sitting down one night in my dorm and trying to work out how they can get in and looking at different schedules for like us and the Flyers and the Rangers and all these. So it takes a lot for me to give up on a season. So I'm not even close to doing that. But I am just scratching my head because we're in the same exact spot as we were last year. And
Yeah.
I thought we all kind of, the players, the fans, the coaches, the front office, the hockey gods kind of all had a powwow and said,
Mm.
"Hey, we're not going to do this anymore. We're just we're done with that." Matt Barzell actually came out and said, like, "I'm sick of it."
I was
And we
gonna
all, yes,
say,
us too.
you know who's scratching his head as well is Matt Barzell, who said specifically that he wanted to have a good opening part of the season, to be comfortably in a playoff spot at the All-Star break. And I hate to break it to Matt Barzell, who seems like a heck of a nice guy. That has not been the case. And in fact, I was also, it's funny that you bring this up because after the loss last night on Saturday night to the Florida Panthers, and we're going to talk about the last 3 games in a row. I was actually thinking about how annoyed I am that once again, the Islanders are in my all-time least favorite position in sports, which is hoping that other teams lose so that you can make the playoffs. Like right now, the Flyers are in a bad spot. They've lost 5 in a row. It's really bad right now for the Flyers, who had everything going for them in the first half of the season. And I'm just sitting here thinking, unless they completely fall apart, I don't know if the Islanders have a shot at the playoffs, because right now the Islanders are 5 points behind Detroit, who are in 8th place. They are 6 points behind the Leafs, who are in 7th place. Hopefully the Leafs can implode too. That would be great. And they're only 4 points behind the Flyers for 3rd in the division. So this is the exact position that I didn't want them to be in. It's the exact position that you didn't want them to be in, that Mike Barzell didn't want them to be in, that nobody wants to be in, where you're just, scoreboard watching all the time and hoping that, the dregs of society like the Blue Jackets or Senators can, beat the Flyers or something and give the Islanders a leg up. And then, of course, when it comes to the Islanders playing, they'll blow it and they won't get any points. And we're going to talk about that in a second. We're also going to get into the All-Star game. We're going to talk about the Stadium Series jerseys, Patrick Watt's press conferences, and a whole lot more, and a big supersized episode coming up here. Before we dive into all of that, reminder that we are on Patreon at patreon.com/islandersanxiety, where you can get ad-free episodes, bonus podcasts, and a whole lot more. And trust me, this week is absolutely packed to the gills. So if you're going to pick a time to sign up at the Patreon, do it right now, patreon.com/islandersanxiety. Okay, so how did the Islanders get to this point where they're 5 points behind 8th in the division, in the conference? I'm going to give you the choice. Which game would you like to start talking about? We have the 3-2 loss to the Vegas Golden Knights on Tuesday, the 4-3 loss to the Montreal Canadiens on Thursday, and then the 3-2 overtime loss to the Florida Panthers on Saturday. Each one of these is sort of a story unto itself and equally as irritating as the one before it. So where would you like to begin? Chronological importance? What?
Let's talk about that Canadiens game.
Okay.
Actually,
Yeah.
because that I think is the one that has the most baggage to it.
Right.
And the Islanders, I think the hockey season's so long, and that's another thing that you need to remind yourself about before you give up on a season.
Right.
Like, just think about the Winnipeg Jets and the Florida Panthers and like the Los Angeles Kings, for example, where I thought they were the best team in the league maybe a month and a half ago, and they've completely
Lost
imploded.
14 of 16 the Kings have,
Yeah,
including today.
The Islanders, by the way, the Islanders have won 2 of 11 and 1 of 8. It didn't occur to me because I was thinking last night when I was leaving the game against the Panthers, like, I forget what it was like for this team to win, and why do I feel that way? They just won a couple days ago, right?
But it's been forever. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's just not happening all that often anymore. So yeah, but that Canadiens game, in a hockey season, like I said, it's a long season. You got 82 games. Every game is like a snowflake. It's no two games are the same. Except if you're the Barry Trotz Islanders, then it feels like you just know exactly what to expect, and hopefully we're getting back towards something similar. But normally over the course of a hockey season, when you're a team that is fighting for a playoff spot, you're going to have ebbs and flows and peaks and valleys, and some sugar and spice and all that stuff. And the it's supposed to be kind of few and far between, right? Like the highs, maybe 3 or 4 signature wins, and then you have the 3 or 4 crushing losses, and over the course of a season, you usually get a break from them.
Yeah. Nope.
That Canadiens game, it was almost, I almost felt like a boxer who his corner was like, we're throwing in the towel. We lost to the Predators with 7 seconds left. We wanted to throw the towel in after we lost that Devils game with 40 seconds left, and that Avalanche game. We kind of thought maybe it'd be a good idea to just give you a breather and tell you to live to fight another day after that. But I said no, I'm going back out there. I'm gonna go fight the Montreal Canadiens in Montreal with Patrick Waugh joining us here in my corner. And it was a huge mistake because I would have given anything to have just not experienced those last few minutes. The Islanders were down 3-1. The Gallagher hit, which I don't even think we need to get into. I don't give a shit how long he gets suspended for because it doesn't affect the Islanders. I think Patrick Waugh said the same thing. He's like, it doesn't matter.
Right.
Like if they suspended him one game, sure I'll be mad, but I'm not going to care that much. He's not an Islander, and he's not,
losing Adam Pelech means more to the Islanders than Brendan Gallagher getting suspended.
Right, exactly, and that's how I feel about all suspensions. But when that happened, I made a conscious decision that I'm going to go lock myself in a different room, turn the lights off, turn off the volume on the TV, and I'm going to try to time it out that I'll miss the entire 5-minute power play because I needed to change something. I had no faith that they were going to score, and I could see myself going to bed angry already. I could picture it in my head. So I did that. I went into the other room, lights off, whole thing. I came back out. It's 3-3. And I'm like, holy crap, it worked. And immediately I go to turn back around. I'm like, I can't watch the rest of this game. I got to do my part. That's the thing about being an Islander fan is we are all doing our part. And no matter what, these guys don't see it. Me and my brother were getting into it with Tom Wilson in a hotel lobby, unbeknownst to the Islanders before that game in November. And we'll do our part. So I go to turn around, and by the time I do that, the Islanders are down again. Yeah. Like that loss sent me onto the couch. I was on that couch for an hour and a half again, and that's like I said. How many times have the Islanders had a loss like this season where you're just on the couch with the TV off or on mute, and you're just in your own world? Yeah, the house could be on fire around you, and you just wouldn't know it. And when the fire department came and said, "Hey, why didn't you leave?" You say, "Well, the Islanders just lost this game in regulation somehow." Yeah, and they'd arrest you for like negligence or something. That's like the 6th time this season I've spent an hour and a half on the couch in my own self-pity after a loss.
It's been brutal, and for me, we'll get into, but like just that whole sequence after they tied the game, my first instinct is always to look at how much time is left on the clock, and I believe they had 6 minutes left. I want to say 5 minutes, and I said that's too much time. And sure enough, what was it? 45 seconds later, a minute later, something like that. An egregious turnover by Pierre Engvall, his second of the game, leads immediately to bing, bang, boom. Sean Monahan, who scores the game-winning goal. And I could see that goal coming from the moment they tied the game. Like, I knew it was going to happen. I had hoped that goal would happen in overtime at least to get a point. But the fact that it happened like that is just absurd. And there was another time when I thought the same thing, where I was like, there's too much time left. I think there's just too much time. Like they had tied the game or whatever, and there was just too much time left. And I said to my wife, they're going to lose this. And I think, I forget what it was. It might've been the Avalanche game. I'm not sure. But I was just like, no, there's too much time. And this team, this is where I'm glad you talked about the big picture, because that's what I had to remind myself of as well. This team has only been under Patrick Waugh for a week. He has only had 1.5 practices. He was working on neutral zone today. He was working on something else. My big concern, I think that next year they'll be a lot better after a training camp and all that stuff. I think they're going to be great. But right now, I think the bad habits are too ingrained in these guys. I think that they still don't understand how to generate offense, how to protect their own slot area, whatever high danger chance area, not turn the puck over all the time, and all these same things that we've been driving ourselves crazy over because that they're doing under Lane Lambert. Like I think that stuff is way too ingrained. And now they have a week off. I'm sure they're going to get some well-earned rest. I mean, I think we're all in agreement, right, that this week having this week off is going to be a great thing for the Islanders. Like this is exactly what they needed, but which I think is important. Like they are going to get rest. I expect them to come out with a new fire on the other side, but not being able to practice isn't going to help them understand Watt's systems any better. And this game was right up there because they came out once again for the second time this year in Montreal, absolutely pissed their pants in the first period and played much better with a much better team in the second and third periods. But just one dumb mistake ruins everything. And this was a tough one. This is right up there with the toughest losses. I mean, and we talked about all the Devils, the Sharks loss still bothers me.
Yeah, the Sharks loss. Jesus Christ.
All these other ones, and we could go through that just haven't, are what this season has been all about so far. Like if they make a video about this season, I wouldn't want to watch it. Like I just,
no,
I couldn't take
it would it would be hell. You're dead and you're in the depths of hell.
Yeah,
rewatching the Islanders will lead to the Sharks and the Red Wings and the Devils and the Hurricanes and then the Predators do this one with the Habs. That's the thing that I think this makes this perhaps the signature loss of the season is that they were the ones fighting back.
Right.
And I think they deserve to win this game, going away. And if Sam Montembeault was a little bit less spectacular, or the Islanders caught maybe a couple bounces, or like you said, they just made 2 fewer mistakes, because I thought they actually came out really well those first 2 or 3 minutes, and then Hudson Fasching, hits a home run into the 8th row of the Bell Center crowd, and it's hard. I try not to blame players for like the delay of game penalties, because it's just weird. It's a piece of vulcanized rubber on ice, and it's gonna bounce. It's not gonna bounce true. And but I was mad because I knew exactly where this was going. Right, like you knew.
Right.
And then I think was it a Mayfield penalty later, or maybe Mayfield just didn't pick up his guy on the penalty kill, and you started to get frustrated because the Islanders' big guys are going, right? That the Islanders, I think Kyle Palmieri's had a great week, and so he's joined the fun with Barzal and Horvat and Nelson and Dobson and Romanov. Like these guys, their best players are going, and they're getting undone by the guys down the lineup, and that kind of spits in the face of what we've come to expect from this team, which is, like we might not be the top end talent kind of team, the playmaking skill team, but nobody on this team is going to shoot us in the foot. These guys are all trained and programmed to play mistake-free, smart, live to see another day hockey when it's their turn to do so. And we've now seen Matt Martin and Cal Clutterbuck and Scott Mayfield and Pierre Engvall and Adam Pelech all over the season make these crazy boneheaded plays and undo a lot of what the Islanders are getting from, a spectacular season from Dobson, a great first full season from Barzal and Horvat, and those things aren't guaranteed. Like it's not a guarantee that Bo Horvat and Matt Barzal are just going to be great again next year. And that's what makes the micro macro fight here so tough, because you're like, this could be the team. It's there, we see it, but they just can't avoid shooting themselves in the foot. Like they are the best self-saboteurs in the NHL, I think. And it's mind-boggling stuff from a team that's entire identity was built on being the best team at avoiding self-sabotage for years. And Barry Trotz said it in his interview when they went to Nashville, that one of the things that he loved was that everybody knew that when you came to play the Islanders, it was going to be tough. Like we were a hard team to play against. I think we're inching back towards that, but is there an easier assignment in the NHL right now than being like, oh look, I'm going up against Sam Bolduc, Sebastian Aho, Kyle Clutterbuck, Kyle McLean, and Matt Martin on the ice at the same time?
Yeah, right.
Wow. And all due respect, I think McLean's been okay, but come on.
Right. Yeah. No, but I mean, he's been okay, but that's a far cry from the team that Trotz was talking about, which was again just a kind of a saw blade, a series of buzz saws that would rip through you on a nightly basis. And like you're talking about, self sabotage and how it's mind blowing. Listen, you don't get a record of 20, 17, and 12 by being normal, right? Like that is an insane record. We're back into insane record territory. Back when remember when they were 976? That was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Or whatever. What like or 679, I think they were at one point. Like it's just like this team does sabotage itself. And we're going to talk a lot about Waz press conferences. We'll talk more about the Montreal kind of rigmarole on the other side of the break. But one of the things that I'm kind of picking up from Barzell's post game press conferences is that this kind of structure wasn't really being taught again under Lane. I think that they had gotten away from this, and I think he for one is happy to have structure again. But again, it's going to take time for them to implement this, and I for one am still annoyed by it. Like it still annoys me. And yesterday's game, this is I guess a way to get to the Florida game. By the way, one last thing on the Gallagher hit. It was so stupid and so insane. I still can't wrap my head around it. But if you want a really impassioned take on it, listen to what Thomas Hickey said before the Florida game. Obviously, he's a former defenseman. He's had his share of concussion issues and getting hit egregiously by a bunch of morons. And he just talked about how 5 games isn't enough to stop other people from doing this. And it's just, I still can't believe that Brendan Gallagher did that. And the thing that the reason I wish the Islanders won that game wasn't just for the 2 points, which obviously would have been very helpful, but could you imagine the uproar in Montreal if the Habs had been up 3-1 with, whatever it was, 7 or 8 minutes to go? Brendan Gallagher elbows Adam Pelech in the face, and then the Islanders score twice on the ensuing power play, and then score the game-winning goal probably a minute or after that, and the Habs lose on Patrick Waugh night. Could you imagine the takes from that could power the entire province of Quebec for a month? Like there would be nuclear takes. Like it would just be insane. So that's the number one reason why I wish the Islanders had won. Obviously, my biggest wish is that Adam Pelech is healthy again at some point. But that's my big regret, is that the Islanders didn't win the game for that. But the way they play, I'm not surprised that they lost. Like it's just they did not play well to start the game, and took them too long to get into it. And that sort of carried over into the Florida game. Like they didn't really start that great. It was kind of a boring first. They had 1 power play, it was garbage. But then as things ramped up, it was pretty clear that the Islanders were going to be chasing this team that is arguably the best coach team in the league. These guys know what they need to do. They go out there and they execute it absolutely perfectly. And there's a reason why they were in the Cup final last year. It wasn't a fluke. And they might very well go back this year because they are playing spectacularly. Sam Reinhart, the best part of this game was when they showed the graphic of Sam Reinhart having as many power play goals this year as like 7 or 8 teams. The Blue Jackets, he's got as many power play goals as the Blue Jackets, the Penguins, the Caps, and a whole bunch of other teams. That was absolutely hilarious. And at that point, even Waz said in his post-game thing, what are you going to do? Like sometimes they're just good on the power play. You can't give them up. You can't give them chances, but the Islanders kept doing it over and over and over again. They ended up giving up 2 power play goals in that game. Again, they did tie it very late. Palmieri with a shot that looked like it was going wide, seemed to have hit off of goalie Anthony Stolarz' mask. This was with Varlamov. Varlamov, by the way, was great in this game. It's good to see him healthy again. He started, it was a surprise starter for 2 games in a row, but he was fine in Montreal. He had no help at all, and he was fantastic against the Panthers. The Islanders would have never even gotten their 1 point against the Panthers if not for him. But then in overtime, the Islanders never touched the puck. They didn't even try to get the puck. The Panthers were all over them, and Oliver Ekman-Larsson comes off the bench. He's instantaneously on a 2-on-1 with Evan Rodriguez, and the game is over. And that's it. And it was to me, I wrote this down, and I hate thinking this way, but it's true. This was the most Lane Lambert game we've seen from under Waugh. Like this to me looked like a game from any other point in this season. They just did not play that well. Their special teams are absolutely terrible. They got that goal late to tie it, but then of course they lost in overtime. And so this was when I started getting really sad, and I started thinking, you know what, maybe this season is kind of a wash. I hate to be one of the people you're talking about, and I don't want to be this way. Maybe I'll think differently if they come out of the break and get a couple of points. But I started thinking, you know what, maybe next season is really where this team is going to finally bounce back. But you were at the game. It was Alumni Night. We could talk all about the alumni in the second half too. But from a game perspective, what was your takeaway from this being in the building?
Yeah, I thought that the first period was really good, and I saw our good friend Carrie Haber in the intermission, and I was like, wow, that was pretty good, crisp period from them, and he's like, yeah, nothing happened. I said, exactly. That's exactly what I was looking for.
Usually, that's how the Islanders win.
Yeah, and I thought I thought it was crisp and all that, and then the penalties just again, it's funny that it's either turnovers or penalties, and that is comes that both of those things are the number one and two things under the umbrella of discipline. Right. And once again, this is a team that its roots are in discipline and playing mistake free and such. So the the first penalty I don't think was really a penalty. I think it was Barzell like hooking Sam Bennett, who threw his stick and kind of bought it. And then the next one was another Bennett kind of show and dance. But the two that really were head scratchers were the Kyle McLean trip and then the Sam Bolduc one. And the Islanders had kind of gotten away with it until Bolduc in the third period, because they'd given up one power play goal, but the Panthers power play is great. Like Sam Reinhart, I think has 20 power play goals now. And as soon as I saw that player, Mackie Samoskevich, go down, I just knew it was 2-1. I was like, this game is absolutely 2-1. There's no way they're going to kill off another penalty, and they don't. And it was right before they were introducing the 2010s alumni, and I had heard that Josh Bailey was on TV and stuff, so I wanted to see that moment. And then I was considering leaving because I just, like you, I just couldn't. I don't think I could have stomached it again. I just couldn't stomach another loss, and I didn't know if maybe it would help change the fortune. And I'm happy I stuck around because I think that was, it could be a massive point. Who knows? But I don't blame you, and I don't blame anyone who you leave that game on the heels of the Montreal game, on the heels of the Vegas game, which, I mean, the Vegas game was really well played, and then the Montreal game was really well played. But the Islanders are starting to rack up moral victories for the first time this season, and that time has just passed. We remember we talked a couple months ago about how they just needed to get points and weather the storm because they were missing everybody. Like their entire defense was out. Robert Bortuzzo was in town, and it was the lineup was just a mess on a nightly basis. And
we were all about the loser point. Give us the loser points. Yeah. We like
just keep gobbling those loser points up. Get yourselves into a spot, and that when everyone comes back, we can start talking about process or whatever. Now all of a sudden they start racking up moral victories here when it's moral victory season ends basically on Veterans Day, right? Like it's not, we can't be racking up moral victories if we want to win, do something this season, have fun in the spring. And like you, I left that game thinking, because it was a really bad night on the out of town scoreboard. The Penguins came back against the Habs and actually won. Go figure. Then the Lightning and Devils game was kind of like a wash. You got to follow the Isles Magic Number account on Twitter for their daily rooting guides. They're so helpful. And Detroit beat Vegas, and it just ended up being a kind of a depressing night all around, especially going into this long break. And as I was leaving the arena or walking towards my car, I was feeling bad for myself, and that trying, having that internal argument about micro and macro, big and small picture, and just being sad because I was kind of ready to wave the white flag on this season. And it's because it was 5 minutes after the game ended, which is natural. Right. Yeah. Right. And then when I started to think about it more, like there's still so much time left in the season. There are some good signs here, and the team, you could make an argument that just considering all the stuff that's happened, the team deserves a shred of credit for being where they are right now. like they barely played with Adam Pelech. I think Adam Pelech and Ryan Pulock have played like 6 games together this entire
Yeah.
season,
Yeah.
right? Like,
Pulock being out still hurts. Yeah.
and I think that this actually, and it's something we don't even talk about, is that Pulock being out is massive.
Yeah.
Think about how many times the Islanders need to kill a game or just get through like the last minute and a half of a period. And Patrick Waugh's options are, okay, do I play Noah Dobson and Alex Romanov for like, and just say like, you guys kill this period off for 90 seconds. I don't, you guys dead tired is better than the other options. Or do I go with Sam Bolduc or Mike Riley and Scott Mayfield or Bolduc and Aho? It's brutal without Pulock and obviously Pelech. So they do deserve a shred of credit. And I'm trying to remind myself here that it should get better, because you look at what the Islanders are at over their last 10 games. Like, they're 2-6-2. They've got 1 win in 11. You look at Detroit, they're getting by on a save percentage bender from Alex Lyon. The Lightning are just as hot as they've been all season. So those teams should come back to the pack. The Islanders, you'd think, should improve under Waugh. Like, they are objectively, these last 4 games, playing better than they have in quite a while. So I'm trying to remind myself of those things, but it is really hard to deal with a loss like that, which is that was more of a run of the mill painful loss. But when you put it on the heels of an absolutely Hollywood tragedy, the bad guys win kind of movie loss on Thursday night, especially with the pomp and circumstance like you're talking about with Waugh in Montreal. When you put these 2 losses back to back and then say, okay, you're off for 10 days,
right?
It becomes really hard to keep your hopes up. And I'm trying my best to. And like I said, I'm not going to give up on a season until it's like got to put the calculator away, because the math is impossible. And I really don't think that any of the teams in this mess have given us any reason to believe that this season's over. So it's hard, disappointing loss. Very happy with the fact that they tied it up late. And I'll tell you what, the thing that really put me at ease though was, it's crazy to say, but the press conference from Waugh afterwards, he's just so romantically calming. It's incredible to listen to him. I could put his press conferences on and go to sleep and just feel better about the state of society and the world. Because the way he talked about the loss, I was like, you know what, he's right. Like, there's a lot of work left, but there's also a lot of season left. There's 33 games left, 33 games. So that's a plenty of time. The Islanders were in, like we said, essentially the same spot last year. The Panthers were essentially in the same spot last year, and then they went to the Stanley Cup final. So they're they're definitely, they're not dead, but a loss like that will have you convinced. 2 losses like that back to back will have you convinced that they are, and then it's up to you to kind of fight off the evil forces and stop thinking about trading guys like Brock Nelson and stuff like that. So
well, it's like crazy now. No, by the way, to me, Nelson has been one of the team's best players. He's not a point per game like Barzal, Horvat, or Dobson, but this has been a Brock Nelson season. He's on pace for another 30, 35 goals, whatever. He's he goes cold for a couple of games, and then he storms back with two goals or 3 points or something like that, and just reminds you, oh yeah, this guy's really good. So, but again, it gets back to what you were saying before. Like, there's guys down the lineup that his 2 wingers haven't been nearly as consistent as he has, and Kyle Palmieri had a good week, but I'll be honest, before he tied that game in Montreal, I was ready to send him packing back to Anaheim or to New Jersey. Like I was just like, what happened to this guy where he just disappears? And why is this team always saddled with these guys? Again, it's Bailey, it's Grabner, it's Everly. Like, I like these guys, but the 20-game goal drought, what is it? Engvall has I think one point in his last 17 games. Obviously he was hurt for a while, but it's stuff like that drives me nuts. But the funny thing about Waugh, and I did enjoy that press conference, but it started out with me being annoyed because he was like, I thought we played pretty good. And I was like, huh? Like, he thought, what? But he talked about the structure and how he sees a lot of positives. And then after a while it occurred to me that I think he's starting to do something that I've read Al Arbor do and other coaches do, where like when they lose, you give them the soft touch. Like, no, they've just lost a game. They know where they are in the standings. They're all feeling really bad. Especially a goal like that. What are you going to do? And yelling at them and telling them they suck or they did this wrong or that wrong, that's not going to really do anybody any good. So a lot of times what a lot of coaches will do is, in a situation like this, they will give them a break. And especially, it's the last day before the All-Star game. Dude, get out of here. Go to Turks and Caicos. Do whatever. We're going to talk about what Wah said he was going to do in a little bit. But, I think it occurred to me that, like, okay, maybe he's doing that. And he barely knows these guys. Whereas, if they have won 4 or 5 games in a row, he's going to start being like, well, yeah, it was good, but we could have done this better. We could have done that better. Like, the guys are going to start pushing a little more. So maybe it's a little bit of psychology there. But yeah, this was a rough one. Again, coming off of that Habs loss, this to me, it's funny because going into the game, I thought they were going to lose 6-2. I sent you a text. I'm like, yeah, all this alumni stuff is great. Too bad they're going to lose 6-2. Then halfway through the game, I'm like, well, they're going to lose 1-0, which is almost worse than the alumni. Then I was like, all right, well, maybe they've tied the game. Maybe they can win this thing 3-2 and get out of here and with a kind of a barely deserved win. And then, of course, in the blink of an eye, the game is over. So I went through these weird stages and all of them kind of were just setting me up for the ultimate disappointment. But that was not the first time that the Islanders have played a Stanley Cup finalist from last year this week. In fact, we can't forget the Vegas Golden Knights game back on Tuesday, another 3-2 loss. Again, they went down 3-1. They were down 3-1. Another Adam Pelech, turnover leads immediately to an Ivan Barbashev goal. And then they're on the power play. The Golden Knights are, and Sheldon Rempel, who, by the way, I saw was inserted into the lineup and was going to make a joke about, oh, congrats on the goal. Of course, he scores a goal. His first goal of the season, right off the rush, it was a power play goal. There wasn't a power play goal, as Brendan said. And then Nick Waugh takes Noah Dobson's turnover at the blue line, turns that into a goal. And it was just more of the same. And they played better, but and we got a shorthanded goal from John Gabriel Pajot. Oh, and sorry, Brock Nelson had scored his 500th point, which was in the second period to tie the game. So, there was positives. The effort was better. The breakouts were better, but still just too sloppy, too many turnovers. And this is what gets me really mad. It's just, I don't see how these guys who have been handing the puck to the other team. I mean, you have coined the phrase. I coined the phrase playing like assholes. You, prior to that, coined the phrase playing for the other team, which is what these guys do all the time. They hand the puck to the other team, and then they can just do whatever they want with it. I mean, they were doing this in the Panthers game too, and just getting run all over their own zone. It was kind of crazy. I just don't see how these guys can flip a switch and stop doing that, despite having a new coach telling them don't do that anymore. Like, I don't see it happening, and that's where I get kind of sad for the rest of the season. But like you said, 33 games, you never know, something could happen.
Yeah, and I think it actually is as simple as just stop playing like assholes, and and at the top layer of it, which is just stop taking dumb penalties and making dumb decisions with the puck. Because if you look at the numbers, under Waugh, they played 4 games and they have out attempted teams that they've got like a plus 19 differential in terms of their shot attempts. They're plus 5 in shots on goal. Of course, they are minus. This is all 5-on-5. They're minus 2 in the what really matters in goal differential. But their expected goals percentage is if it's only a 4-game sample, but it's better than any team in the NHL this season. Like the Patrick Waugh Islanders, and they've got their plus 9 in high danger chances. So at 5-on-5.
We haven't seen the Islanders shoot this much since 2014-15, since that crazy season. Right. They've never done this with this much volume before. And their expected goal numbers. I mean, weren't their expected goals like 7 against the Habs and they still lost?
Yeah, it is. They are getting skewed a bit by the Habs, but a lot of that was expected goals being racked up on the power plays.
Right.
But at 5-on, like they had the better run of play, if you will, at 5-on-5 than the Panthers.
Right.
So as long as this team is not doing stupid shit, they have every chance in the world of turning this thing around. And that might be too much to ask because Adam Pellick's hurt, Ryan Pollock's hurt. That means Casey Cizikas is hurt.
Yeah.
That means that you're going to have a lineup where at least two of Sebastian Aho and Sam Bolduc and Scott Mayfield and Mike Riley, who I think's been good, but the point is that those are 4 6 defensemen in the NHL. The Islanders are icing 4 players who on a good team you'd say that's a number 6 defenseman. They're icing host of bottom 6 forwards right now too on their team, and it's pretty clear I think that Matt Martin is still struggling. Cal Clutterbuck has not been very good lately. I don't think that the fourth line I think has been okay with McLean. But I still think that they'd be better off just throwing Fasching or Gauthier. I know Fasching's hurt now, but one of those 2 guys down there and doing what most teams would have no problem doing with Matt Martin and healthy scratching him every once in a while.
Clutterbuck on the penalty kill is particularly hard to watch.
Yeah,
he doesn't really do anything. He just sort of stands
head scratching
there.
stuff.
Yeah.
So I like considering the lineup that they're icing right now. That the opponents that they played outside of Montreal have been tough, and like everything looks encouraging. So there are reasons to believe, but there are absolutely reasons to not believe. And the problem is that the reasons to believe is like the team as a whole and their coach, and the reasons not to believe are just individual mistakes. And that it's very confusing to kind of quantify that because the Islanders could, outchance teams 20-12 every night. But because 3 of their chances against are Sam Bolduc playing for the Tampa Bay Lightning, like that, they're going to end up in the back of the net. So this is it's a tough spot. The Vegas game, though, my general thoughts are just an encouraging. You talk about feel bad wins. This was another moral victory, feel good loss, and unfortunately, they don't get the 2 points for that. Right. So, I mean, you want to be optimistic so badly after this week. Patrick Waugh coming it's like I'm not alone. I've had a bunch of people say the same thing I have, which is I would die for Patrick Waugh. I would absolutely die for the man. I've known him a week, and I would die for him. And everything just looks right with this move. It feels right. It's hard to explain it to people who aren't Islander fans, but when things are kind of cosmically correct with the Islanders, you could feel it. You could have walked into Nassau Coliseum. Like that 2014-15 season is a great example. You'd walk into the doors of the Coliseum, the wind would be blowing outside. You'd open those glass doors. You'd get the famous Coliseum security pat down, which is like, basically a high five, let's go Islanders on the way in. And you would just get swept up in it. You'd feel it. Right. And you'd be like, this team, there's something here. And that feeling is back. And you felt it with the Trotz Islanders, especially too. And that feeling is definitely back. The problem is, I don't know if it's back in time. Yeah. I don't know if like Santa's coming this Christmas, or if he's taking this Christmas off and coming back next Christmas. It's tough because as a fan, you just want to win. Like you want to win every season, and I hope that they can, but we'll see. So it's really been a tough week to separate the mature big picture outlook on things from the, oh my God, I want to scream and cry and all sorts of other things with the immediate term stuff. So and now you got a week off to fight through those emotions and explain them to your coworkers or spouse or kids and stuff, and as if they are important and real. So good luck.
Yeah. Oh, that's a perfect way to segue into the second half. We're going to talk about that week off. We are going to have all kinds of stuff coming out this week, but we have a grab bag of things to get to. Real quick, though, I just want to shout out Sam Montembeau and Anthony Stolars, who both got to look like Patrick Waugh in front of Patrick Waugh. That must have been very exciting. So meet us on the other side because we got a ton of stuff to get to in this supersized episode. Okay, so meet us over there. Thanks. And now a word from our sponsors. First is VintageIceHockey.com, where you can get t-shirts, hoodies, jerseys, mugs, and more featuring over 100 classic hockey logos. Vintage Ice Hockey also carries our Al Arbor and the Island merch, and our portion of the sales always go directly to the Center for Dementia Research. Use the code ANXIETY20 to save 20% off an order of 2 items. That is VintageIceHockey.com. Try wines from the Pinot Project. They offer a Rosé, a Pinot Grigio, and a Pinot Noir that was named a 2022 Top 100 Best Buy by Wine Enthusiast magazine. All are delicious, priced at less than $15 a bottle, and available at local wine shops and at UBS Arena. Learn more at thepinotproject.com. Please drink responsibly. So the Islanders have no games this week. Most teams are actually off. There's only a couple of teams playing. I know the Senators are playing. The Blue Jackets have a couple of games. Very light week all told. But that's because there is an All-Star game this Saturday. Thursday is the draft. Friday is the All-Star competition. And then Saturday is the All-Star game. If you've listened to the show a lot, you know that I am a fan of the All-Star game. I try to watch it every year. That ends right now because I made a decision a while back to not watch this year's All-Star game for a number of reasons. And those reasons are, in no particular order, fuck Toronto, fuck the Leafs, fuck Sportsnet, fuck TNT, which is, I guess, where it's being played, and most importantly, fuck Justin Bieber and Highlights magazine ash jerseys that he designed for this event. I think they're ugly as hell. And I don't want to watch this. Like, my favorite thing about the All-Star game is, like, a market and a team and a fan base gets to enjoy the spotlight. People can really get into, like, these fans are great. They love it here. They love hockey down here. It's awesome that they get to enjoy this All-Star game. We get that every day with the Leafs. So I will be goddamned if I'm going to sit there and watch this 72-hour wank fest on top of the Leafs coverage that we normally get. So no thanks. I'm going to watch literally anything else. And I would not be watching the All-Star game. As long as Matt Barzal makes it out of that All-Star game healthy, that's all I care about. If he wins the MVP, I'll go back and watch the video. I don't expect other people to feel the same way, but that's how I feel. You hate All-Star games, so you probably aren't watching it anyway. But I don't know if you have another reason, just your general hatred of All-Star games, or is there another reason why you may or may not be watching? Maybe you're watching this year. What do you think?
Oh my God, I can't think of something I'd want to watch less. It's almost, it's almost as if they designed this thing to piss off this
right
podcast and its community. Because you couldn't have done a better job. And you know what? If you did that and came out and admitted it, absolute kudos. But the problem is that's not what it is. This is what the league perceives that people want. And it just ends up being a cringe fest. And you're gonna wrap in the cringe. And I'm not even like, I hate the Leafs. An incredible amount. I think about them way too much in my life because I hate them so much. And I'm putting that aside when I say this. I think the Toronto Maple Leafs are the cringiest team in all of sports.
Yeah. And
it's really hard to be cringier than a lot of the NBA teams, but the Leafs do that because they think they are that. Like, they think that their cultural clout is the same as, like, the Milwaukee Bucks. Right. Like, no, man. Hey, Austin Matthews, why don't you get online here? Go to like Sonic here on Long Island, or All American, or do something and wait how long it takes someone to notice you, and they will. But you're the leading goal scorer in the end. You're on pace for 70 goals in the NHL this season, and it will take more time than you think, because that's how little people care down here. And I'm gonna read one. This is not an official Master Leaf Theater because it's one sentence.
Okay.
And it's by Chris Johnston, friend of the podcast, at The Athletic, his new home, on January 4th, 2024. The title is something about Matthews being the captain of the All-Star game, whatever. But here's the sentence. It's the first sentence of the story. Austin Matthews is set to play the role of unofficial host for next month's All-Star festivities in Toronto.
Jeez, that's
Yeah.
dire. If he's the host, this is going to be the worst party ever. Oh my God.
I would love to. Where was the All-Star game? Was in Florida last year,
I guess
I
maybe, yeah.
think, somewhere. When it's in Nashville, did someone say, "Yeah, David Legwand"? What a moment for him to be the unofficial. Oh
Right.
man, let's let Austin Matthews introduce you to the city of Toronto and the
Yeah.
hockey culture here that you definitely don't know about because we never talk about it.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, get ready for that. And it's the All-Star game pre like 24/7 access to everything that we now have in today's like media climate. It was fun because you got to know you the only way you could see Timu Solani play hockey was if the
Right.
Ducks made the playoffs or they had like the ESPN2 hockey, Tuesday night hockey game at 10:30 against the Avalanche or something in the 90s, right?
Right.
Or you could see him at the All-Star game. And if you were a 12-year-old kid and you wanted to watch Timu Solani, you like Timu Solani, yeah,
Mm.
that was a big deal because you got to see him play.
Right.
And you got to get like a glimpse of his personality and such. And it, same goes for go down the list of players of those eras, and then obviously like everything has practically
Mm.
jumped the shark at this
Right.
point, and it's one of the reasons that I love the darts is that I don't think that the darts has jumped the shark yet, and um, the All-Star game jumped the shark many moons ago,
Right.
and nobody wants to admit it. None of the players want to admit it. You said go to Turks and Caicos. I think there's 32 players. Each team has one representative plus
Mm.
whatever it is, 40 players.
Mm.
However many players are there. I would say that maybe 12 of them want to be there
Oh yeah.
rather than going to the
Yeah.
Maldives or whatever for a week.
Mm.
So it's frustrating. And I'm also, if you're someone who likes it, good for you, man. I'm jealous. I wish that uh I could get behind it, but it's just not for me. And I think the fact that it's in Toronto is just going to make it exponentially worse. And the worst part about this, the saddest, most hypocritical, evil part about this whole thing is I'm probably going to watch for that reason. Like, I don't want to watch it. And when I say watch, I mean like kind of just like keep an eye on it on
Right.
Twitter or whatever, because they're going to honor like the 1967 Leafs.
Mm. Of course,
And
because of course they are. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, well, you gotta like they just won the Stanley Cup last year. Again, the
Right.
Toronto Maple Leafs have won the Stanley Cup, according to a lot of people every year since then
Mm.
too. But I'm not. It would be something I would just hate watch,
Yeah.
or just not
Yeah.
get involved with at all. And maybe it's makes me crotchety, but it just sounds god awful.
I know. Could you imagine, by the way, if the Islanders got an All-Star game and then they celebrated the 1983 Islanders and they had them all come out and could you imagine the online reaction? Why are we celebrating these guys?
Yeah.
What's the big deal? Who cares? Why do I care about this? Meanwhile, you're 100% right though. You know what this All-Star game was made for? Online Leafs fans. It was made for Leafs Twitter. Because like you've got Bieber, Will Arnett is there, like as an all-star honorary captain. Michael Bublé, like, okay, it's fine, whatever. Like, just I don't know. To me, this whole thing is every day when you're a hockey fan, trying to get information from Sportsnet and from ESPN and from TNT and all these places. It's already like a Leafs All-Star game. So why would I bother watching this? To me, no thanks. And again, I'm not a fan of any of them. And they're bringing the draft back, but I'm sure they're going to do it in a way that sucks all the fun out of it. And to me, like you said, the reactions of the players, I remember last year when they came out and they're like, Dylan Larkin, and Larkin looked like he was going to the electric chair. Like, dude, you were in the All-Star game. Smile, please. McDavid is famous for doing this. Like, he just looks like he'd rather be literally anywhere else. So Matt Barzal will smile. Guy's always smiling. I hope he has a great time. I hope he wins the MVP, and I'll catch up later. But thanks, but no thanks. That is my take on the All-Star game. Okay, speaking of jerseys, let's talk about Stadium Series jerseys that were revealed this week. People were very excited to see these. I don't know. They were upset that they weren't revealed earlier. They finally came out, and to me, they're just a big old meh. I don't really dislike them, but I can't say I really like them either. You actually kind of like them quite a bit, or at least you told me that day that you were really into them. Are you still really into them? Now that you've seen them? We've all seen the dark with the thick orange stripes and then aisles across the front. It's a little different. The logo is up on the shoulder, but to me, again, they're just sort of, I don't know. It's not for me. I don't want one, but I don't really hate them either. I've come to hate the Pilgrim jerseys. Can we mothball those already? I'm tired of seeing them. That made that Florida game much worse. But to me, these aren't really much of a win or a loss. But do you still like them? I mean, you were into them when they first came
Yeah, I like anything that says Isles on it.
out.
I'm a sucker for that. Like I've always thought that the team didn't have enough gear that said Isles, and I think it was
That is true.
My hypothesis there is that the Islanders, like that term Isles, is associated with darker times, almost in a weird way. I don't really think that in the when you hear people talk about like the 80s Islanders, it's always Islanders, right?
Right.
And then in the 90s, I think maybe Sports Centerified it to Isles, and maybe that's why the team never really got behind it. I also just don't think that the previous regime understood like the kind of cult following that this team has, and that you should lean into the weird rather than run away from it. Because it happened. Unlike the Leafs, who like you said, like they get talked about and written about as if they have won every Stanley Cup since 1967 and are also going to win the next one that's given out, until it doesn't happen, and then for 2 days they say everyone's getting traded and fired, and then nobody does, and then the cycle repeats. The Islanders had this weird kind of poor man's version of that for a while, I think, where they kind of just pretended like those years didn't happen, and I think that's unfair to fans. I've always said that. Like, I think it's very unfair to fans not to throw the fishermen out there and to say the term Isles, or to talk about the 2001, 2002 team as if it wasn't a seminal moment for a whole host of fans, or the 2013 team as if it wasn't a huge moment for a lot of fans too, even though that they lost in the first round. Because we wear those scars. Like I know I watched the James Wisniewski Islanders, right? Like I was there watching Milan Jurčina play like 30 games. The Islanders never lose in them and lose every other game. I've lived through that, and I want to celebrate those moments because I'm now at a much better place with the team. The team is in a much better place as well. And it feels that way because I lived through some lean years, and you lived through some lean years, and everybody listening to this podcast lived through those lean years. So I think it took so long for the Islanders to acknowledge that is a part of the fan experience, and it's especially a part of the fan experience as an Islander. So anything that says Isles or has a fisherman on it, I usually just like it because it feels like those years are being appreciated. I feel the same way about that orange jersey. I wore my orange Adrian Aucoin jersey to the alumni game last night.
Yeah. Oh, nice.
And yeah, I was really going back and forth on whether to wear that or Yashin, because I was 2-0 with the Aucoin jersey, and I as I said to a couple people, I live my life in constant fear of regression. If something's going good, I just am always thinking, where's the other shoe? I'm looking for the other shoe, right? And I love that jersey too because it just reminds me of some really weird teams. It reminds me of Wyatt Smith and some really strange times. And so anytime I see the word Isles, I like it on Islander gear. And yeah, I think it is fine. But it's jersey talk to me too is something that's really jumped the shark. I don't care if someone else. One jersey that I've actually started to come around on that I didn't like at first that now I kind of do is the original black jerseys with like the Islanders written across
really?
it. Yeah, like I've just started to like it a little bit more lately. And
our weird Islanders logo jersey.
Yes, exactly, right. And maybe that's part of it. And I think it's because a lot of those guys that wore it are some of my favorites. Like I loved Oposo and I loved Mark Streit and guys like that. So, yeah, but it's you can of course just feel the way you want about it. But I think the fact that it says Isles like that is pretty cool. And my favorite part about the release was that they released a video of like Brian Trottier and Dennis Potvin and Bob Nystrom and some other alumni, Al Montoya,
Yeah.
like looking at it and
Talking about how great it is.
yeah, like,
Yeah.
oh my god, this is so cool. It looks like an outdoor hockey jersey to me and stuff like that. And they're anything Isles I like.
Yeah, well, I mean, the Isles shortening goes back to the dynasty days, but you're right though that they've just kind of ignored it this whole time, and it is fun that they brought it back, and so it is pretty cool from that standpoint. I just kind of wish it was, I don't know. There was not a whole lot of design to it, but I do like there are hats and beanies and stuff with the word Isles on it that I actually like a lot more than the jersey that's probably going to cost somebody $300. But again, if you're into it, maybe it'll look a lot better on the ice. We'll have to see. I'm not really a huge fan of like the Rangers jerseys either. I just, oh wow, it looks like they just put NYR. It's again just like with the All-Star game. It's like they just took whatever was going on Twitter and just made it into the jersey. So it's like hashtag NYR, hashtag Isles. So I just kind of, I don't know.
Yeah,
For me,
I do think that it's very fair to say that like it's clear that the NHL just and the jersey makers, is it Adidas or whoever it is these days,
yeah. Fanatics,
Fanatics, yeah, they don't get it.
Right.
Like it's very rare when they get it. And that's why it's such like a huge deal when like a team knocks it out of the park with a jersey, because these these jerseys come up in a boardroom, and they're a bunch of suits argue about them, and then they say, you know what, we've spent too much time on this, just make it what the Predators wore in their Winter Classic and just slap Isles on it and change the yellow to blue. Right, like that's probably how it happens. And it's a shame, because if you just go on Twitter or Reddit or anything and just spend, or Aesthetics or one of those sites, and just spend 5-10 minutes looking around, and be like, oh, actually, let's just do something, put these couple ideas together and see what comes out. But with the NHL, it's and most sport, it's not just the NHL, but with a lot of this kind of stuff, it's always the path of least resistance.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
and I've said this a couple of times on the podcast now. Something that I'll never forget that Chad Millman told me at work is that when you're watching TV, you have to remember that these TV segments are executive producers making TV for other executive producers. And I think it's the same thing with the NHL. It's just like these are suits making jerseys for other suits, like to not get in trouble. How can we just make this thing not get us in trouble?
I'm just here so I don't get fined. The old Marshawn Lynch line. Yeah, and I mean, part of it is also like my excitement level for this game is basically zero. Like the Islanders have given me no reason to be excited for this game whatsoever. Like they're going to take their brand of undisciplined, assholery to MetLife Stadium in front of 90,000 people. I'm supposed to be excited about this. I don't know, and I don't think I am, but we'll have to see. Again, maybe they look a lot nicer. We've heard reports from people who say in person they're actually pretty cool. So if people like them, that's great. But to me, they're just sort of meh. I don't care. Again, I do at this point. I have come around to hate the Pilgrim jerseys, which I was agnostic on for a long time. Now I really never want to see them again. I don't remember. To me, it's not an Islanders jersey. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm with you. I do think that I feel like they just pop up randomly. I'm like, why?
Yeah, that's the other thing too. Yeah, yeah. Like, why are we wearing this in front of the alumni? Why are we doing this? Which is our perfect segue to Alumni Night. Now, we love it. It seemed to be a bit of a quieter group this year. It seemed like less people. People have places to go. What are you going to do? One of these years, they got to figure out a way to get the guys who are all broadcasters to have that night off, so we can finally get Ray Ferraro, Kelly Rudy, Jamie McLennan, all these guys to finally get there, because they're working. It's hard, but Kevin Weeks should be there. But it was a good group. It's always a fun time, and we had a lot of people asking us on our last mailbag for the Patreon, when are they going to do more for Pierre Turgeon for his Hall of Fame induction? Well, there he was. He was center stage, man. He was on with Shannon in the intermission. He was like skating with kids at Northwell and at the rink out there. So great to see Pierre. He looks fantastic. That whole shot of him, Potvin, LaFontaine, and
Trottier.
Trottier.
LaFontaine. Yeah.
can't believe I forgot Brian Trottier, the quietest guy.
That's okay.
There he is. That's okay. It's late. What are you gonna do? But it was just great. It was great to see them all there. It's great to see LaFontaine back. You know, he hasn't been around that much as well. So, and I like how that's segmented. You know, 70s, 80s, 90s, and we did get a really interesting person who showed up for the 2010s group. No, not Al Montoya, although he is one of my favorites. El Cubano Grande. Talking about one Josh Bailey, who, as far as I know, he's not officially retired, but they sure as heck talked to him as if he was. And so that had to be a little bit awkward, but the song rang out. You know, Josh always looks a little bit awkward, so I don't know what he made of it. But what was the reaction like when they showed Bailey, and like compared to other guys, what was his ovation like?
I think he got the biggest rip of them all.
Yeah.
Which was really heartwarming and emotional. And yeah, I went to that. It's so sad to admit this out loud. I went to that game. I ended up in the Hyundai Club because I was just buying I went to that game alone, and I went to that game. This was like, I'm just gonna buy whatever the cheapest single I can find and whatever, and go from there. And I ended up seeing like a Hyundai Club ticket for a good price, and I went in there, and I've never been in there before, and it ended up being right where they would stand the alumni, so it was kind of kismet. So like I was right behind Mariusz Czerkowski, who is just
nice,
an unbelievably good looking dude. It's crazy. We've been saying it forever, like when he's on TV or they show him on the Jumbotron, but to have him and then like Sean Bates in the same lineup, it's just so beautiful to see like the duality of man. Two guys who had the same exact job and played on the same exact team, and you know, it's you know, no knock on Bates, he's a hero of mine, of course, but Czerkowski is just such a good looking dude, and Czerkowski got a big rip, of course, like the Turgeon and Flatley kind of LaFontaine, but when they showed Bailey, it was, I think, what a nice moment it must have been for him too. You know, like Thomas Hickey got a huge rip too, which is funny to think, because I think if he had not gotten into broadcasting, who knows? But yeah, it was so nice, man. It was like it seemed like a big smile on his face, and like I said, I was thinking about leaving the game because I was so just sad, and then I said, you know, let's see if the team kind of is inspired by this, or at least in my mind, I'll make up that the team was inspired by Josh Bailey and tie this game up, and they do. But yeah, like I went to this game alone for that moment to see Josh Bailey on a Jumbotron for 6 seconds. It's crazy, but it's true. Like that's why I went to this game. I went to this game for that sole reason, to clap my hands, to put my hands together for Josh Bailey for 6 seconds. And I was happy I did. The 3 stars of Alumni Night. I mean, Bailey obviously was the first star. Don Cutts, who actually was in a picture with Bailey in the slideshow.
He's the guy with the big beard, wild man.
Looks like Mankind.
Right? Yeah.
So, and I found out an interesting fact about him because I looked him up on Hockey Reference. So Don Cutts he played 6 NHL games in 1979, 1980. Only 6 games. Wow. All 6 for the Edmonton Oilers. Okay. Never played. He was an Islanders 7th round draft pick in 1973. Never played for them. And he went to Alumni Night. He's 71 years old. He was a goalie.
Yeah.
An absolute legend. Like this guy could end up being like a kind of cult Islanders legend.
Right.
Just for showing up to Alumni Night. He never played a game for the Islanders, but could be an Islander legend, which is so good. That's in Islanders. Amazing. And so he was the 2nd star. And then the 3rd star might have been Kip Brennan because of the way he was dressed. He had this he looked like a modern day country singer. Look, he had this big wide brim hat and bomber jean jacket kind of thing and boots. And he looked like he could go walk out of UBS Arena, get on a plane, and play to a sold out crowd at like Rexall Place or something.
Calgary Stampede sounds like what you're.
Yeah, exactly right.
Driving. That's awesome.
It was great, and I think Alumni Night is the perfect example of how far this team has come.
Yeah.
Off the ice. and it felt like Alumni Night even, like, in the crowd. I ran into a couple of you know, people I grew up with or went to high school with who were some of my favorite people, like, just to play
Right.
hockey with it, when I was growing up, and then I saw a couple other people, like a family friend, and the atmosphere is so jovial because I
Just
think
it
of it.
sounds like a high school reunion, but
Yeah,
like Pierre
except for the
Turgeon
good.
is there, you know?
Yeah, exactly, right. Going to someone else's high school reunion.
Right.
I once ended up at a bar, for the Mepham High School reunion, 10-year reunion once,
That's funny.
even though I didn't go to Mepham or know anyone who went to Mepham. It was just at a bar that my friend worked
Hmm,
at in Rockville Center, and, yeah, it was fun. We
that's really
just
funny.
partied with the Mepham class of, I think it was 2009, and,
Hmm,
so that yeah, and, but you're right, it was like the best parts of a high school reunion almost, and,
hmm,
uh, this is the stuff that we've going back to what I was saying even before about, like, Isles and
hmm.
the fishermen and whatever. We wanna celebrate these guys, and Carrie Haber had a great point about Graham Townsend kind of becoming, like, we called him the chapter chair of Islanders alumni. He came, I think, to the first alumni night when they were like, "Yeah, it doesn't matter how many games you played if you were once an Islander, always an Islander."
Hmm.
And these guys kind of bought into it, and it's become a thing. I think that the guys who probably go to it tell the guys who are like, "Nah, I think that sounds like a waste of time." Like, "No, trust us, you'll have a
Yeah.
blast." Like Kevin
Yeah.
Poulin was there. I don't think I'd ever see Kevin Poulin in
Seriously.
Nassau Coliseum or UBS Arena ever again.
Because now he's Spengler Cup champion, Kevin Poole.
Yeah, yeah,
He's
exactly.
finally, you know,
But
can come back and like with a clear conscience and like, you know, the confidence that he
right.
didn't have playing for the island.
Yeah, it was great. I was kind of hoping they'd do something for the captains that were there,
Yeah.
like Strite and
Yeah.
Potvin or whoever, Flatley.
Mm,
But
yeah.
yeah, I mean it's just I would, if you're a gigantic Islanders loser like me, like you love this stuff. Like this is right up your alley
Yeah.
to be there to watch Darius Kasparaitis and Benoit Hogue standing next to each other,
Right.
Rich Pilon and um Radek Martinek, who, like, talking about Cherkowski's good looks.
Mm,
Radek Martinek has had he's aged incredibly well.
mm.
He's now kind of handsome, which is something I did not see coming. But yeah, like, just it's great. I think
It's
that
cool.
the Islanders deserve a lot of credit, and
Mm,
it's something that has been a long time coming, and they keep doing it
yeah.
every year and every year. It's a lot of fun, and I hope more people kind of get behind it, and
Yeah.
it's continues to take on a life of its own.
Yeah, I definitely want to see more guys there, and it's great seeing the guys who are there again. Seeing Turgeon and LaFontaine together is really like a special thing because they were basically traded for each other.
Yeah,
Obviously, I was hoping to see Roberto Luongo though, and I've
yeah.
mentioned
I think
this a
he'll
couple
get
of
there.
times.
Honestly, I
I think
think,
so too,
I
but
think, I think it's more as more and more of these things happen, and guys like that they've played with who were also Islanders, well, and then maybe they're friends with it. Like, you got to go. Like, it's fun. It's a
mm,
good weekend. It's in New
yeah,
York, and um, speaking about Turgeon, Matty the Usher texted me saying that him and Wah go way back.
yeah. Well, they played on
Uh,
Pat. He was on Colorado, I think,
yeah,
with
and
Law for a very brief time. Yeah,
yeah, and you start to think like this is starting to feel like a little bit of a destiny thing, that like the Islanders Habs alliance,
right.
Turgeon
Well,
connection. I think Brian Trottier
Trottier.
coached Wah.
Right, yeah,
Yeah,
he was an assistant coach there. So, well, actually, it's funny you bring him up because real quick, I just want to like to me, the guy I was thinking of too was Patrick Waugh. Imagine you're Patrick Waugh, you're a Hall of Famer. You're a guy who was just vetted insanely in Montreal, like, and here you're at Islanders alumni night, and it's like these people are going crazy for Eric Cairns. Like Eric Cairns is a guy I wouldn't even remember him playing against me. Like I can imagine what his reaction was probably like, you know, oh yeah, well there's Brian Trottier and there's Dennis Potvin, but like who the hell is Sean Bates? Like I don't remember any of these guys, so he was the guy I thought of, which I thought was kind of funny. But
it's a conversation I had with another friend of mine. Like, yeah, like you go from Thursday, and I guess we should talk about that now.
yes,
A Thursday ceremony, um, and to go to from Montreal. I don't know
mm.
if you know this, Elliot, but there's two places that do ceremonies better than anywhere else.
What's that, Jeff?
Well, one is Buckingham Palace,
Mm.
and the other is Mulcahy's on Long Island. No, it's in Montreal, of course.
Yeah.
And there was a great rant. Boober Gordon had such a funny rant on Friday's show about how he hates the pomp and circumstance, and he hates that specific phrase. And if you have Sirius XM, it's worth going back and listening to because it's quite funny. I will say that you know that those two things being juxtaposed next to each other as games are hilarious. That because I thought that the Montreal thing was cool. Like I got some goosebumps and chills, and I was so in the moment that I didn't think about what the ramifications of that ceremony were going to be.
Yeah.
And that's on me. I made that mistake by getting swept up by something without thinking about absolutely lunatic hypotheticals that were going to be served to me by the national hockey media some 12 hours later.
Yeah. All right. So what Mike is talking about is on the 32 Thoughts podcast. They talked about the game, of course, did not mention the Islanders really at all. They briefly talked about the Adam Pelech hit. And of course, Elliot Friedman went to his favorite subject, which is appeals. We don't know if Gallagher is going to appeal the suspension or not. Appeal what? That his elbow didn't hit Pelech in the eye? Are they going to, you can't dust from my elbow. What is he going to say? Anyway, I don't think that's the whole thing. But they talked about, Jeff, a part of me made me wondered, what if Waugh was coaching Montreal? How great would that be if Patrick Waugh was behind the bench of the Canadiens, which is basically offensive to a number of people. One, the Islanders. Two, Marty Sanloway, who is the guy who's currently coaching the Montreal Canadiens, and Patrick Waugh, who I'm sure would love to have coached the Montreal Canadiens if they had called him at any time in the last 7 years when he was coaching in their backyard for the Quebec Ramparts. And so this made me think, and we were talking about this a little bit before we started getting in here, was like, I never really thought about this problem that the Islanders are going to have now, which is the Waugh problem. And it's probably, you know what? I think we're going to get a shortened version of this in Toronto when the Islanders come back from the All-Star break, because that's where their first game is at. And it's going to be about Waugh playing in Toronto. They're going to try and make it about Toronto, even though Waugh never played there and, only played against their biggest rival, played for their biggest rival for a number of years. But like, I'm starting to wonder if this is going to become a distraction. And that's another thing that Friedman said that made me mad was like, he complained that there was no morning skate for the Islanders because they wanted to avoid the distraction, the craziness of Montreal. And that's true, but he put it on Lou Lamoriello. Well, if you listen to Waugh's press conferences, it sure as heck sounded like he was the one who didn't want to have a morning skate because he knew what it was going to be like. And he didn't want the Montreal throng all over him prior to the game because it's about the Islanders. This game should be about the Islanders. And Waugh kept saying it over and over again. This is about the Islanders. This is about our game. We got to get back. This is playoff time for them. We got to get 2 points out of there. Of course they didn't, but that's another story. And it's just, it got me mad because it feels like nobody's listening to what this guy is saying. Certainly nobody cares about the Islanders, which is not a surprise at all. But I just feel like this is going to become a huge distraction now because now they've already played in Colorado. What happens when they play in Colorado next year? Like, it's going to be a huge thing. And then what happens when they play in St. Louis or whoever, or Detroit? I mean, what is going to happen whenever Waugh goes somewhere? People are going to make it a big deal that he's the guy, and it might end up being a detriment to the Islanders. And so I got preemptively annoyed by this, and then actively annoyed by it. Again, the ceremony itself was fine, whatever, but like the coverage of it is really, really irritating. And I'm afraid that this could end up being a problem for the Islanders, especially as currently constituted when they can't even lock down a third period lead, let alone handle the pressure of playing under Patrick Waugh in Montreal. Like it sounds like a bad scene, at least for now. It's
been a week, right? Like that's the thing that's killing me here, and it's really annoying, because all these people in media, they love to lean on this crutch phrase, which is we're in the entertainment business, right? So our job is entertain.
Right.
You're not. You're in the reporting business. Right. You're you have a ton of credibility and clout, and I don't think it's a stretch to say that you and I both enjoy listening to this show. Like and we find it important. It's a pretty big part of our week during the NHL season and off season. And the reason we like listening to this stuff is because it's like a one-stop shop to kind of get an idea of what all the big stories in the NHL are, of course you got to wade through a ton of minutia to get there. Like you said, the appeals. If I had to hear more about if Corey Perry is going to appeal his salary,
David Perron's appeal is working its way through the system now, Jeff.
Oh my god. Oh god. Yeah, but your job is to report news and to help us kind of know what's real and what's not. And this would be like if the guy Woj in the NBA said, I don't let's just pretend Pat Riley's coaching the Knicks or something. And he's like, can't help but think if Eric Spoelstra leaves the Heat, Pat Riley's gonna like a day after the Knicks announced that Riley's back or something, right? Like it's or if like Joe Torre goes to coach the Rays and they come play the Yankees and like you gotta think if Joe Torre's thinking it because we all are. I'm like, no, I wasn't. I was thinking about it might sound crazy.
Now that I think about it, Don Mattingly coached the Marlins for a while, and I don't think he ever got that from baseball. Like, maybe if Joe Girardi gets fired or Aaron Boone gets fired, whoever it was, maybe they can bring in Don Mattingly. Like, never. You never heard that.
Yeah, especially like a week into it.
Right.
A week into him. That's the thing. Even if this was Patrick Waugh's third year and his contract was up,
right,
we can have this conversation.
Right.
We can absolutely have this conversation. Because hell, we had this conversation once for an entire decade. Right. And a whole part of the conversation was, can we just wait until it's actually, push is actually coming to shove here. And with this situation, it was like, I don't even know if it was a cheap shot. I don't know what it was. It was annoying. And I think it was a good example of if people think you, me, and the rest of the Islander fan base concocts this our place in the national hockey or the big hockey, mainstream hockey media ladder, what rung we're on. If you think that we're making it up, you just need to listen to this. It was a week into it. Eric Needell, who a friend of the pod and did a great Weird Islanders episode with us on Chris Simon, put it perfectly. He was like, it's one of my favorite bits is when the Islanders have something going for them and the national media tries to just assign the story to another bigger, more fun team in their mind.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah.
I don't know. I thought it was so annoying because I'm happy that this is the All-Star break, so it kind of just is going to get brushed aside, and most people are just focusing on the ceremony itself and not this because and also in the media world that we live in now where everyone's trying to make content out of content. If you go to like the Hockey News or any other, of these sites, so many, there's, 2 or 3 stories a day written about, oh, well, Elliot Friedman said this on his podcast or Dave Pagnotta said this on NHL radio or whatever. And I understand why these outlets put those pieces out, but then if that stuff goes and it gets a life of its own. It's been a week. A week and we're having so much fun with this guy. We love him. And already, and that's not the story here. The story here isn't, man, this has been an incredible fit and Islander fans are just absolutely flocking to this huge personality that they didn't know at all. No, the story is, man, wouldn't it be cool if Patrick Waugh him and Marty St. Louis just did a high five and switched benches?
Yeah, it's I couldn't believe it. Like I literally couldn't believe it that he said that. And I was just like, this is when you're dropping the pretense of like, I'm a journalist and this is my, my objective job. And so, again, I get it. Like we've talked a lot on this show about people ignoring the Islanders. I understand that, but that was before Patrick Waugh was behind the bench. Like now it feels like you're going to focus on this guy and then completely ignore the team and ignore what the guy said himself is saying. That annoys me. Like that really irritates me because he said he didn't want to have the morning skate. He wanted the game to be on about the Islanders. He wanted to focus on winning the game, and that was it. It's a tough spot. Obviously, again, he's barely here a week, but that just really, really irritated me. Yeah. And it made me think, oh my God, this is going to happen now forever. Like, what happens when they play in Florida? Like, oh, we got to talk about Patrick Waugh, who was in net for when the Panthers lost their first the '96 Cup final. Like, okay, well, this is going to be the thing now, and it's just I just don't think it's going to help the Islanders very much. So
I think it can be pretty succinctly put like this: the hockey media always misses the mark when it comes to the Islanders.
Yes,
always. There are always going to be good and bad stories with this team, and these people will just fly right by those and go to the story that they want about to make it about someone else.
Yeah.
We've said it a lot about that 2018-19 season when the Islanders were an incredible underdog story and were somehow painted like a pariah.
Right.
We've talked about it when they went to the back-to-back runs to the Eastern Conference Final is like a continuation of that underdog story with a team that everyone thought had no talent and was playing this weird style and were an underdog in every game in the 2021 playoff run. They were an underdog in every game, and everyone was like, "Fuck this team," right? The Detroit Lions are playing. I don't know how they're doing, but they're playing right now. Everyone's like, "This is great for Detroit. Like, what a cool story!"
No.
And nobody's saying, "Yeah, man."
Yeah.
Really hope that the big market teams kind of just come out here and stomp on them because, that's what my chart says.
I'm sick of these guys. They've been good for 3 months. I'm sick of this team. I hate this team.
Their quarterback's like a retread that was kind of cast aside.
Yeah.
And nobody's saying like, well,
right.
Yeah. Oh God.
Right.
This story stinks.
I hate them, dude. They've been good for 3 months after being bad for 10 years. What do you hate them for? But they do.
Yeah.
And no, definitely. I mean, the Canucks are getting that kind of now too. And, and the Flyers were getting that too. Although again, like I said, off the top of the show, it seems the wheels seem to be coming off of them, but that is our lot. And again, that was all prior to Waugh. So now this is an interesting wrinkle that we're going
to. And I guess I'm the idiot here because I was like, I'm pretty excited to hear people talk about this really unlikely marriage.
Yeah.
And I will say once again, we're a week in, so who knows how it ends up. But right now it feels so natural and awesome and warm and everything. And nobody is writing about that.
No.
Instead, we're getting can't wait for him to coach the Canadians.
Right.
It's in soccer is a thing. Like coaches kind of like step up to jobs. So it's very clear that people think Patrick Waugh is this is an audition. He's auditioning with the Islanders to go to the Canadians or Avalanche.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Right. It's I don't think he's going to go back to the Avalanche.
No,
but yeah, no, I thought that too, and I just I don't know. The whole thing bothers me, but the way to get over that is to win a lot of games, which would be a great thing for the Islanders to do. But yeah, it's already irritating. They like Waugh, they just don't give a shit about his team. So good luck for all of us with that. One guy who won't be making any return trips to UBS Arena as an alumni or otherwise, unfortunately, is Zach Parise, who has signed a 1-year deal with the Avalanche for the minimum. So much for, the Islanders are nobody. The Islanders are obviously not in a playoff spot. The Avalanche are pretty darn good. I kind of get where he's coming from. This is not like a John Tavares situation at all, but I think it's safe to say that we're both pretty disappointed that Zach won't be coming back. Again, I don't blame him. It's a chance to win the cup, play for a team, and he's done the right thing by coming in halfway through the season, but it kind of sucks. And I didn't want to believe it. I didn't think he was coming back to the Islanders, certainly after the way this season has been unfolding, but what are you going to do? What do you make of Parise signing with the Avs this week?
Yeah, I think you can feel about it however you want to feel about it, because and it does sound a little hypocritical because we had so much fun with the Kyle Dubas quote. And then, it's a little bit of cruel twist of fate that we're dealing with a very, the minor version of it with Parise, but I can't blame him at all. I mean, just Matt Barzal put it perfectly, and I think Barzal's been a lot of fun to listen to.
Yes.
The past week, talking just very blunt, and I like that he basically called everybody out and said like it's our fault that Zach Parise isn't here. So if we were 10 points better. And I like that how he said it. If we got like the 8 or 10 points that we should have got, he would have been here. And
he knows. Yeah, I think more than anybody, he knows.
Yeah, absolutely. Almost feels like every game Matt Barzal's just like in the crowd too. Like he's just like there. He's watching himself and his team play. But Yeah, and I think that it's if I was Zach Parisi, I probably would have made the same decision.
Yeah,
Absolutely, like
yeah.
so.
Right.
Happy that we don't have to play them until the Stanley Cup final.
and I mean, I'll be rooting for him.
Yeah,
Honestly. And we'll see. But yeah, no, definitely. I think we're all in agreement. Like this had the Islanders been better and shot out of a cannon and gotten those points, yeah, he would be here. But
yeah. Or
what are you gonna
and
do?
on the other side is if he had done this in September and he went to the Avs after saying that, it'd be like, well,
That would suck.
that was shitty. But he
That's true.
he
Yeah.
did the smart thing and let it play out and
Yeah.
watch the Islanders blow a 4-1 lead to the San Jose Sharks. So
I guess that's true. I mean, I guess it could have been worse. He could have went to sign with the Leafs or something like that,
right.
or the Canucks. But I think the Avs are a cool choice. So there you go. So good luck, Zach. We'll see what happens. Real quick, we talked about this before. You talked about Barzell's speeches after the game. We talked about Waz thing. We do want to get to something he mentioned before. The Wah press conference has been fun so far, and I was telling my wife this. Like, they went from Lane Lambert. Of course, she has not watched a minute of Islanders hockey, let alone the post game press conferences of their coaches. I am the guy who does that. But I was like, their previous coach was a real low talker. Like, he didn't say anything, and he said it at volume of one. Not only does Wah tell you X's and O's stuff that I don't know how many coaches actually do this. Certainly Barry Trotz didn't do this, but he does it. He's a loud talker. He does it at a very high volume. And my favorite thing is he starts answering questions before the guy is finished even asking, or before the reporter's even finished asking it. He'll be like, oh yeah, and he'll get in there. This has been a night and day transition, and it is fun to watch. And the funniest thing, and I didn't even realize this, you pointed out that Wah kind of goes off the track a little bit sometimes. And he talked about how he's going to spend this week trying to find a place to live.
Yep. I can't wait for this.
It's nice to have the break for the players, for everyone and the staff, and be ready when we come back and play Toronto. But I'm going to use this time to be on Long Island and enjoy it and learn more about it and find myself a place to stay. So that's going to be more fun for me than staying at the hotel. I have no problem being at a hotel, but I can't wait to have a place to be and enjoy myself. But all I'm saying is thank you to everyone, because the fans have been so nice to me and very supportive, and I appreciate everything. And even you guys, thank you for what you've been doing for me and for this organization.
He said he basically was so receptive and happy with the welcome he got from Islander fans. And it made me feel good, because we always talk about one of our favorite things, our favorite phenomenons in hockey is when somebody gets it that you probably thought would never get it, or probably doesn't understand what's going on here. We saw it with Trotz, and we thought we had it with the first overall pick from the 2909 draft, which is part of the reason that we still yell at him. Barzell gets it. Bo Horvat gets it. Evgeny Nabokov. Guys who you wouldn't expect to get it and get it right away, get it. And it's taken this guy like 24 hours to understand it, and I love that he said, he's like, yeah, I gotta learn about Long Island this week. So I'm picturing him trying to figure out if I know that the Islanders will probably push him to the make recommendations to the areas where they kind of populate on Long Island, like Garden City and Manhasset and such like that. But if I was Patrick Waugh, I would just buy myself a mansion on the South Shore, like right on the water, and just be Patrick Waugh on the beach there in the North Atlantic here. And
I'm going to predict.
I can't wait to see I can't wait for some Waugh sightings.
Yes. That would be fun. I'm going to predict he gets a place near a golf course, where there's got to be like a cool new development right off a golf course. He's a big golfer, as he said. So that's my prediction, that he finds a spot there. But I'm looking forward to seeing him, not so much where he lives, because I'm not a stalker, but like you said, Waugh sightings, people running into him at the local bagel place, the restaurant here, the gas station. I just because he's a hard guy to miss. Like I don't know how many French Canadian accents there are, on Long Island these days. But I think it would be kind of funny.
And it's Patrick Waugh. It's still so
sure.
surreal. It's still so surreal.
Right. I think he's about to find out that a lot of people watched his games when they were younger. And I think he's about to find out that Avalanche team in particular had a huge reach. And if you were a hockey fan on the island at the time, the Islanders weren't very good, but most of us watched those Stanley Cup finals, and especially, against the Devils and that the original one against the Panthers, like those were big deals. And those playoff wars with the Red Wings and Stars and Blues, like they were appointment viewing back then for hockey fans, and Patrick Waugh was the star of all of them. So, I know we both know that somebody's going to say, you really did beat the shit out of Chris Osgood, and he was a fan favorite of ours too. Oh yeah, Ozzy, what are you going to do? something along those lines.
Yeah, and just I know you're going to have your Patrick Waugh impression in tip top shape as we head down the stretch run here, and I'm pretty excited for that as well. You might be able to do a one man. There's already been one man play written about or used, sourced from this podcast. We could see another where you can be both Lou Lamoriello and Patrick Waugh on an off Broadway stage. I know a playwright who covers Islander stories. Maybe I can ask her to write another one. But yeah, it's been great, the whole thing, and the fact that Patrick Waugh, Long Island is welcoming Patrick Waugh in as one of their own, and he's embracing that is just not lost on me how incredible this is. And I still think about him all day, basically, and just crack up whenever I see him with like the Islanders step and repeat behind him. It's still hard to get around because you think back to like the golden age of street hockey, and everybody wanted to be Patrick Waugh when they were in goal on Long Island, and even on Long Island, I should say. It's because they didn't want to be Wade Flaherty.
True. Tommy Soderstrom.
Exactly.
But it is weird.
Weird. But
and
great.
It is great. And if you haven't listened, you should. They're all on Islanders, the Islanders website. And there was one where he was talking about I forget what the question even was, but he was talking about a story about when he was a rookie and he was in the sauna, and he didn't know why he was in the sauna because it was like, I guess, for older guys. I don't know. He didn't really finish this. And Larry Robinson comes in, and I'm watching him tell this story, and I'm thinking to myself, oh my God, where is this story about him and Larry Robinson in the sauna going to go? But it turned out to be a very good story about Larry Robinson saying, listen, kid, no more bad goals. And it's like, that would straighten me out too if Larry Robinson cornered me in the sauna and said, don't give up any more bad goals. And of course, Waugh said he did. The first day he played after that goal he gave up was bad. But he does have a way about him, and no offense to Lane Lambert, but we were not getting this kind of television out of Lane Lambert ever. So I definitely recommend it. But it's different than Trotz. Like Trotz was a philosopher. Yes. Trotz was a guy, he would tell stories, but it was more about like a philosophical or Zen sort of bent. And like, this is one of the things we do, but it's like kind of life lessons. Waugh is like pure entertainment. Like it's just, this guy is just straight up entertaining. So.
Yeah. It's like comparing Aristotle to like Mick Jagger or something. Right? Yeah. Like it's just, you're watching two people hone their craft. And they're sort of leading you to the same place, thinking about, big picture life stuff, but they get there in a very different way.
Right.
And I want to say this, like, at least right now, of course, these things change and seasons are long and relationships with coaches become quite complicated, quite quick. But right now, I want to live in a world where this guy's coaching the Islanders for 20 years. Like, I want him to be the guy that's becomes a mainstay here, right? At least at this moment, because he's not done one thing that's made me think, oh boy. There's everything he says, everything, he's kind of talked about with the island and the team and his style of play and all this stuff it's been heartwarming. And I think that one thing that sports has gone so far in the other direction of just trying to be efficient and squeezing every bit of value out of a human being and a player and an asset and all that stuff, that we're now, I think, starting to see like a slow shift back towards the less, I don't want, like, spreadsheet heavy style of coaching and more into management and leader of men kind of guys with Tortorella and Tocchet and Paul Maurice, like Laviolette and Rod Brendamore, even like these kind of guys.
That's definitely more Waz style.
Right,
sure.
Exactly. And to be honest, it's so much more enjoyable to hear a coach talk about coaching in that regard. Whereas Lane Lambert, you're like, oh, this guy's, he sounds like he's the senior accountant at a firm giving a "How was your day at work today?" speech when he would meet the media. So it's just it's a breath of fresh air, and I think this is part of the reason, like, that micro and macro argument inside everybody's head on the island is going to be going on for a while, because you do need to just you want it to come quickly, and the success and the move to spark them, and it could, but at the same time, if you can just take a step back and look at the bigger picture and think, man, this guy could be coaching the Islanders. There's potential that this guy is just like a legendary coach here, which of course is not crazy to say after 8 days.
Hey,
and a 2-1 start.
it beats saying this guy's never going to get anything out of these guys. So
yeah,
I mean,
right.
You're kind of, and I think most people are probably in the middle. So we'll just, I mean, I think being excited about the coach is about as well as you can do right now, because that's all they have. I mean, they have to make up 5 points at least in 33 games. They have to jump over a bunch of teams, and they just have to stop playing like assholes. Like, again, as I said when they hired Watt, just get them to stop playing like assholes. And so far, we haven't seen that yet. But there have been strides. Again, the shots on goal are good, and the expected goals and underlying numbers have been good, but you need to get some results, and they have 33 games to do that. Okay, but they're off this week, so we gave you guys a supersized episode. Hope you enjoyed it. We packed a lot in here. We wanted to get a lot going. It's because everybody's got extra time, so we hope all of our many topics were enjoyed by you. And if you want more Islanders content, well, I can tell you where to find it. It is right here. We have this episode here on Friday. We have a brand new episode of Weird Islanders, the podcast. Because it's All-Star Week, we brought in an all-star. So we got a super great guest. You're going to love it. It's about a guy who gets asked about a lot. So check that out. That is on Friday. Now, that's for every feed. Now, if you're a patron, you get extra stuff. You get our Country Club Atmosphere non-hockey podcast on Tuesday. And then you get my latest edition of My Islanders Book Club on Wednesday. It's about a book that I don't know if a lot of people read, but it's actually really, really good, and was written about on Lighthouse Hockey a while back. And if you don't own it, you should. So that's on Wednesday. So sign up at the Patreon for more stuff. But either you got this, you got Weird Islanders on Friday. So we are here to fill the gap that the Islanders won't be able to fulfill, and hopefully they're getting a good rest and ready to come back. Ready on the other side to come back and take charge of the rest of the season. Do not forget our live event, March 30th at the Offside Tavern in New York City, 4 p.m. We're going to do our podcast around 4:45. We want to see some Weird Islanders swag, your stuff. We want to hear from you for a live podcast happen, that we're going to record that day. So March 30th, Offside Tavern, be there. We're going to have a lot of fun. If you don't want to participate, that's okay. But if you are coming, we do want to see some Weird Islander stuff. So make sure you do that. We're going to have a great time there. Also, another quick thing. So Google Podcast is going away. I hope to have more info on how that might affect our shows going forward. But we do have a new subscriber feed on Spotify. Shout out to listener N. Lemowski, who let me know about this. And so I was like, that's a good idea. I should do that. So thank you very much, Ann. I appreciate it. And hopefully, again, people want to listen on Spotify, and you can do that, as a patron. If you're logged in, it should give you access to those episodes. Okay, that's it. Again, supersized episode. Thanks for listening. We hope everybody had a good time. Follow us on Twitter at Isles Anxiety Pod. Leave us a review on Apple Podcasts and at Spotify as well. Our theme music is Morning Haze by Family Dinner. Listen to more of their music at Bandcamp and Spotify. Read Lighthouse Hockey every single day, even when the Islanders are off. We are part of the Fans First Sports Network. Learn more at fansfirstsports.com. Shop vintageIceHockey.com. Try wines from the Pinot Project. Vanderpump Rules is back on Tuesday. The whole new season, post Scandoval. We're going to see where this goes. Maybe we'll talk about that again on a Country Club Atmosphere coming up soon. Mike, where can everybody find you on Twitter?
The Big Lebowski with 2 E's.
Follow Mike at the Big Lebowski. Read and listen to his work at Action Network. We talked about so much today. The Islanders have a week off. What do you think? What are you planning on doing this week while the Islanders are off?
Learning more about Long Island.
Of course.
No, I'm if the what I should say, like the kind of company line answer would be, getting away from the team and thinking, trying to do stuff that's got nothing to do with the Islanders. Come back recharged for the second half, but the God's honest, pathetic truth is I'm going to be having that micro versus macro argument in my head for, I don't know, 8 days, whatever it is, until they play again, and ruin my life some more. So, I'm going to be, just pacing around the house thinking about if this team's season is over or not.
Yeah. I think a lot of us are also going to be doing that. If you want a break, I recommend going to see Godzilla -1, which was really, really, really good. It's in theaters right now, and there's a black and white version, which is great too. Check it out. But yeah, I think we all need a break, and we will be back next week before the Islanders' next game, which is unfortunately in Toronto. What are you going to do? But we'll be back to see where our heads are at after the break and before the game. So thank you very much for listening. We will talk to you again next week. Weird Islanders on Friday. And we'll talk to you later. All right, take care. Bye-bye.